Today we are talking about something that is very much a part of the homegrown filmmaker experience, and that is watching YouTube videos about film. YouTube has been a huge resource for me in furthering my education. I love a good essay video. So today I'm going to share with you the videos that have impacted me, the ones that I return to over and over, and some of my takeaways from them. Let's dive in. Number 1, How I Prepare for NANOWRIMO by ABBIE EMMONS.
Basically, you need to know 4 things about a scene. What happens, why it matters, the consequence, and the realization. And then you need an "and so" to set the next scene in motion. What happens and the consequence are the plot. Why it matters and the realization are the story. The conflict that's happening inside our protagonist. So that's how the scene card works, and it's really awesome because it really allows you to uncover what really matters in the story, which is what's going on inside the characters. The internal journey, the internal conflict. Yeah!
So this is one of the first videos of Abbie's that I ever saw, and I think that's probably why it sticks with me so much. Abbie is so upbeat and passionate about writing. She's articulate, and she brings some real down-to-earth clarity to the process of writing a story. Most of her videos are geared toward novelists, so not everything transfers over to screenwriting, but I find that her videos inspire me to move forward and to just be excited about the process of writing. In this particular video, Abbie introduces the idea of scene cards and how she uses them, and this immediately blew my mind when it comes to writing a longer story. Part of what Lizzie and I were struggling with as we were writing A Match Made at Christmas was how to create actual scenes out of emotional beats. You know, say we wanted our main character to be overwhelmed, or we wanted a scene to showcase her vulnerabilities. That's just a vague concept for a scene, not an actual scene that can be written down with actions and dialogue. These scene cards helped us go from a conceptual understanding of what the scene needed to be to actual completed scenes. They were also a big help in keeping Lizzie and I on the same page as we were working on the manuscript simultaneously. Besides the scene cards, the biggest thing that I took away from this video was just what the writing process for a larger project could look like. Like I said, Abbie is down to earth, and she shares openly and in detail what she does and why it works for her. I feel like I've learned from her what having a lifestyle as a writer looks like. So not just when you get flashes of inspiration or when you're working on a specific project, but an extremely realistic look at what it takes to take writing seriously. Number 2, What Writers Should Learn from Batman Begins by Just Right.
Pop quiz, what's the main theme of Batman Begins? The movie is 15 years old, so I'll give you a second.
Don't be afraid.
Yeah, it's fear. But it's not just that people talk about fear all the time in the way that the characters of Batman v Superman vaguely talk about power, but that each of our 4 characters has their own highly specific take on the subject.
Just Right does an amazing job in this video of breaking down an example of how theme manifests into characters that engineer conflict. When he compares the different Batman films, Batman Begins and Batman v Superman, you can immediately see how having your theme play out in your characters is central to having any sort of substance to your story. As storytellers, we aren't creating content just for the purpose of creating content. Most of us have something that we want to say, so it's important to understand the mechanics of how to get your story to say what you want it to. Having the ideas presented in such a clear example really makes the point hit home. I walked away with a heavy impression of how clearly I need to understand the values and the motivations of every important character. If what I'm trying to say with each character is muddy in my head, it's going to be nonsensical to the audience. Number 3, Stranger Things, How to Introduce a Character by KARSTEN RUNQUIST.
The entire span of this scene, if we were to start with their audio until Mike runs up the stairs, is about 45 seconds. That's 45 seconds where 4 characters were developed not fully, but enough to give the audience a general sense of who they are. In this scene, our characters are bouncing off of each other's own beliefs and perspectives, resulting in a greater understanding of who each character is. Hence the reason I call it the character bounce effect.
I If the Batman breakdown video highlights how theme influences character, then this video opened my eyes to how character is expressed through conflict. There's no faster way to get to know someone than to see how they handle conflict. And screen time is precious. You have to use it to best advantage to communicate character as quickly and effectively as possible. Don't waste your first few scenes by filling them up with banal dialogue that does nothing. Use those opportunities to show how your characters think, feel, process, and struggle. The example of Stranger Things that he uses in this video makes a great opportunity because there are so many characters to introduce. You get to see the technique applied again and again. Number 4, Baby Driver Color-Coded Characters by Daniel NETZEL.
He starts out seeing the world in a very black and white way, but as he gets deeper into the uglier parts of his job that he's tried to avoid, he realizes that things aren't as straightforward as he may have thought. Courtney Hoffman created separate stages for Baby's undershirt so that it becomes darker as the film progresses to reflect this idea. It's subtle, but when you compare this shot from earlier in the film to this shot taken from the end, you can really see the difference.
When watching some essay breakdowns of films, I sometimes question whether the creator of the essay has been reading a little too much into things. But this video is the one that broke through to me how much intention and detail can be in production design. Everything you see on screen is a choice. And as a low-budget filmmaker, it's a little bit frustrating to not yet have the resources to be able to control everything to the extent that this video shows. And I do really like the inclusion of interview snippets with the director of Baby Driver that prove the essayist's points about the characters and what the director was doing. It made me realize that there could be so much depth to a film that you never really see unless you learn to pay attention to it. Number 5, The Last Airbender Review Part 2, Directing by Just Right.
Shyamalan is a thriller horror director, so he basically needed to learn a different filmmaking language to direct an action adventure fantasy film. Then again, before directing The Lord of the Rings, Peter Jackson had only directed one drama film, Heavenly Creatures, while the rest of his filmography was horror comedy. So I can see that from a studio perspective that maybe there was reason to think Shyamalan could do it too. The problem is that while every director has certain quirks, certain storytelling tendencies and techniques that characterize their films, M. Night Shyamalan's quirks are his curse, especially in The Last Airbender.
Boy oh boy, this is still one of my favorite videos to revisit. It's actually the second part in a series, and I do recommend going and watching all 3 parts, but I settled on listing just this one because it was the one that had the most impact on me. I first watched this at a time when I was really trying to figure out how to see the influence of a director on a film. I wanted to understand how you could tell the difference between a okay director and a good director, and this video answered that question. I love how Just Right breaks down the quirks of M. Night Shyamalan and shows how he just didn't suit the genre and story of The Last Airbender. Suddenly, I could see what kind of choices directors make and how they can affect their films. Which led me to really think about what stories do I want to tell and what stories mesh with my natural bents, which led me to consider what my natural bents are and caused me to lean into them a little bit more without being too worried about having strengths or experience in every style of writing. Also, it was just cathartic to have somebody put into words everything that was just so frustrating with The Last Airbender. I did walk away from that film going, just, how is this so bad? How did this even get made? Number 6, A Closer Look, Man of Steel by D4 Darius.
Jor-El explains how baby Clark's gonna have a much better chance of survival on Earth with the humans, but Mama's not too crazy about the idea.
What if the ship doesn't make it?
Mama turns away and distances herself from Jor-El, clutching baby Superman. Visually, this mimics her opinion of Jor-El's idea. She doesn't like it and she's whisking baby Superman away, almost like she's protecting him. When we find ourselves in situations that we don't particularly like, we tend to walk away from them or we distance ourselves from them, right? It's pretty much a universal.
This video blew my mind. It is one thing to know that blocking is a thing. It is another thing completely to understand how blocking is part of telling a story. How to come up with blocking, how to communicate and justify blocking to your DP, to your actors. The one line that stuck out to me the first time I watched this video is still something I think about all the time.
If we watch this entire scene without sound, we can still get a context of what the scene is about.
Emotionally, the audience should be able to tell what is happening just by how the characters move and what the camera brings attention to. This video is an inspiration to take every shot seriously and to approach every, simple dialogue scene as an opportunity to do something interesting. Number 7, Akira Kurosawa, composing movement. By every frame, a painting.
Kurosawa films usually feature large groups of people who either band together or split apart. Crowds like this are really cinematic. When you put this many people in a shot, any emotion feels big. If you want a good reaction shot, try using 4 people. Or 25. And if you want something really big,
Similar to the video about the Man of Steel, this essay gives me rich food for thought on how to approach portraying subtext and emotion through blocking and movement. With the 4 types of movement talked about in this video, I haven't really had a chance to put any of that into practice. It's expensive to have that much control over everything in your frame. So this is a video that I revisit to keep my focus on how I can apply those principles where I'm at right now. Hopefully one day we'll have the money and the tools and the people needed to really play with movement. But for now, it's just something that I'm considering and trying to figure out how to incorporate. Number 8, The Making of Proximity by Film Riot.
The next day started out with us heading back to the same spot that we shot the day before. This was the big dialogue scene and we needed to get the rest of Todd's stuff. Luckily, since it seemed like it might rain just a little bit, we set up base camp with a big tarp above it before we got started, since we were in an open field, open to the elements, 5 minutes drive from the nearest structure. And sure enough, right when we were about to start shooting, rain.
Please, for just $1 a day, you can feed this poor filmmaker. He just wants to make a movie.
This video is what I watch when I'm not feeling inspired. As Ryan talked about at the beginning of the video, everything just kind of went wrong for them with one of their productions, but they decided to roll with the punches, to get out there and to shoot something anyway. The BTS footage just exudes excitement and passion for film, excitement for being a filmmaker and the adventure that it can be. It always reminds me how much I love being on set. I love the camaraderie and the challenge. You can see it all over everyone in the footage that even though it was rough and stressful, they are having the time of their lives. This video is a reminder to stop overthinking. Just get out and do it. Shoot something. Make something happen. Keep it fresh and exciting for yourself, which is a reminder I think we all need occasionally. Well, those are my videos, the ones that impacted me, that still impact me. I still like to go back and watch these from time to time. If you have a favorite video that really impacted your education journey, then please leave a link in the comments because I would absolutely love to see it. Also, if you enjoy talking and sharing about that kind of thing, then you can come join the Homegrown Filmmaker Facebook group where we share our projects, we share what we're learning, and just support one another in this whole self-education journey. If you've enjoyed this video, please hit thumbs up, hit subscribe, leave a comment. It really does help boost and get this video out there so more people can see it. And that'll be it for today, folks. I'm Poling Swet, and I'm a homegrown filmmaker. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.